Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Collapse Life podcast. I'm your host, Zara Sethna, and today I have the distinct honor of welcoming Texas Slim as our very first podcast guest. Slim is a self described modern day cattleman from the dirt roads of West Texas. And in just a second, we'll find out what that actually means. But just as a quick introduction, Texas Slim is the founder of the Beef Initiative. And that's an effort to reshape the beef industry and reshape our relationship with food. There's a narrative going on right now that beef is bad and cows are the enemy. And he has a grand vision of taking on big food, reviving small towns, decentralizing food systems, and reconnecting us all with our own health. So, Texas Slim, a very warm welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Zara. Thank you. Good morning to you. Appreciate you having me on your first show. That's an honor and a lot of grace and gratitude for that. It's good to be here, and we have a lot to talk about. This has been a long journey. It's been a journey of a lifetime, but actually, the last 4 years have been very complex, a lot of unknowns. But right now, within the Beef Initiative, we have a lot of knowns. We have a roadmap, and we know basically what's going on, in small town America, all the way across this globe when it comes to our food supply systems. And I'm very honored to be able to talk about that today. And it should be a good hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long it takes.
That's great. So let's get into the journey a little bit.
Sure.
What led you to start the Beef Initiative, and why now?
Well, what happened with me is, I grew up in small town Texas. Like I always like to boast, I come from the dirt roads of West Texas, and that really does mean something. I'm a sixth generational Texan. We've been in Texas for a very long time. We stewarded land in the state of Texas. That's all we've ever known was agriculture, all the way up until pretty much my parents had to leave the farm. And that was part of something that whenever we as a nation started getting into big ag, once we went into big ag, things changed in this nation in a way that I don't think a lot of people really truly understand. And whenever I was 19 years old, I had to leave small town Texas and go to the city. And I never went to university. I'm self taught. I became a research analyst in the telecommunications industry. And so I have a very long history of basically research analysis, having a skill set that is in big tech, but also through my veins is agriculture. It's ranching. I'm a West Texas hippie punk cowboy, and that comes with a lot of grit. About 4 years ago, I suffered an internal injury. I've broken over 20 bones in my body. I've broken my neck. I got 14 pieces of metal in me, and I was always taught to deal with the pain. Don't complain and deal with the pain. Well, what happened with me, it was an internal injury that I didn't really take advantage of knowing what was going on with me. I had broken some ribs, and I just said, okay, I'm going to deal with the pain. Well, that caught up to me. I had an internal injury that damn near killed me. And so I had to reset. I had to take a pause. And whenever I did that, I was told that I had about 6 weeks to live. And so I kind of had the accountability mirror time. And I said, I'm going to get to the bottom of health. I'm going to do something different that I've never done before. I'm going to combine two skill sets, and I'm going to get to the bottom. I'm going to get to the source of the seed of our issues within our health as a nation. Because whenever I went to the medical community to try to help save my life, I had a lot of dead ends. And so that's whenever I created something called, it's a hashtag, and it's called food intelligence. And I went into a deep dive of what is our food system in the United States right now. And I started uncovering a lot of truths that a lot of people do not have access to. And so I really did do about a year and a half worth of deep research into the global industrial food complex, is that I like to call it. And it uncovered a lot of plans, a lot of things that are unfolding now that I began to started writing about. That led to the Beef Initiative. I knew that getting back to pure animal protein, pure nutrition, really, it's not really just about animal protein. This is about truth in food. And what I want to bring to the world is I want to build out locally and broadcast globally of all the successes that we've had over 4 years of starting with research, true research, into building solutions for families across the world. And that's kind of the short of it right there, the long and the short. And we'll go more into it as we go.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think it's really important to understand when you talk about big food or big ag. Um, I'm not even sure people understand the scale of how big that really is. I know you've written about
Hmm.
what I kind of call the food cartel. There's
Sure.
four major meat processors, four major grain companies, four food
Yes.
distributors. I mean, the sheer size of these enterprises is almost hard to understand. Can you just talk a little bit more about that to help people understand that?
Well, that's what I I grew up in. My grandfather, he was a farmer rancher, and he stewarded his own land and his own seeds. And we used to have heirloom seeds in the United States. This is how we got to where we were within agriculture. Is our innovation within good agriculture. Well, in my lifetime, what we saw is we saw those heirloom seeds disappear, and we transferred into genetically modified. Who controls the seed? Let's look at that, and that's the very first thing I did. When we talk about big ag, we talk about multinational corporations basically having the control of distribution, of processing, of everything that is in agriculture. Within 50 years, we've handed over all of our sovereignty within that seed itself, the land itself, the distribution of it, the market access to multinational corporations. They've commoditized and subsidized our food systems in a way that the general public really is not understanding. By that engineering of commoditization and subsidization of our food supplies, we've basically debased our food system. If you look at the health of the United States over a 50-year period, if you look at whenever we went into big ag, when Eric Butts of the Nixon administration said, you're going to go big or you're going to go home, we got to go feed the world. Well, we never fed the world. What we did is we created massive, massive profits for the subsidization of our food, and that was driven by the multinational corporations with this new form of ag that we brought. Everything tastes good. We don't know what's in our food anymore, and our health shows that as a nation. Right now, 88% of Americans are now metabolically compromised and going into a form of health bankruptcy. This is now becoming, I think, a national security issue for the United States. And the American people are being kept in the dark because the multinational corporations, the people that control the seed and control the distribution of the food that comes from those seeds, they're not really telling the truth of what they're doing, what they have done to our soil with the chemicals, with the genetically modified, with the subsidization, and the centralization and the consolidation of the food supply. We used to have a very decentralized food supply system in the United States. That was the power of it. Now that it's so centralized that it's becoming a one world food group, and that is their intentions. So, whenever you say you're going to have a one world food group, you eliminate options of nutrition, you eliminate market access to pure, true protein nutrition. And this is what's unfolding. And they're doing it under the guise of climate change.
Hmm.
Whenever they say climate change, these multinational corporations are covering up the devastation that they've done to our soil, to our health, and to nutrition alone.
Don't want to take us off of the food topic because it is so central and it's just so key to our survival and our health. But
Sure.
I did just want to kind of bring up that the centralization that you're talking about in food is a parallel to so many other areas, big tech,
Yeah.
finance, real estate. It's happening across the board. And I kind of wanted to ask you, how did it happen so quickly, like you said, the past 5 decades, and without us knowing it, or did we know it and just sort of turn a blind eye to it?
I don't think that we truly knew. We went into this with very good intentions as far as agriculture. We can go as far back as the Dust Bowl in the United States. And what we did with the Dust Bowl is we overtilled the soil. and we commoditized and subsidized wheat in a way that had never been done, on a continent in the United States of America. And then we went into the World War II. Whenever we came out of World War II, we were very industrialized in a different way. And we started seeing that, hey, instead of bombs, we can use this type of technology and industrialization into fertilizer. That was pretty much the first entry point to big ag of you're going to a farmer in the early 50s and you can show them that you can create more yields. Your crops are more beautiful. You use less water. It was a very good thing, and it was great intentions from the farmers, at least. I think over my period of my life, is the trust of the American farmer and rancher was abused, and you had the introduction, of course, chemicals, glyphosate. You had Agent Orange during the 60s that turns into basically kind of a foundational way of creating Roundup, glyphosate. There's a lot of things that the big chemical companies did that, I don't know if it is nefarious. And I don't really think that that's what we need to focus on. What we need to look at is that it has happened. Okay. And if we start pointing fingers, that's the divisiveness that, of course, that, the people that are controlling all this want. What I see is that we lost a form of collaboration. And that form of collaboration causes a lot of division within the subsidization of our food. Once you subsidize the food, you turn the producers against themselves. And so what they have to do is they have to fight for profit margins that are based on a commoditized and subsidized food system. Once you do that, then you are basically serving. You're becoming nothing more than a serf, serving your noble in a way. And that's what the multinational corporations are now. And they took away the power to be a farmer. They took away the power of being a rancher throughout those 5 decades. They're not going to relinquish that type of control over the land and the distribution of the product that brings them that the massive profits that they've made off of our consumption model in the United States. And by saying that, I don't know. Let's not go there as far as who's doing this and why. I know it's happening, and it's basically it's shortening lives. It's basically eliminating the health of a generation of children right now as we speak. There's a generation of children in the United States that will not have the same core nutritional delivery that I had basically by eating the earth in which we did before Big Ag. And so let's look at that. Yes, we know it's a problem. We know it's an issue. But if we go into war against multinational corporations, then that's what that is. That's a war. I want to collaborate with all the independent producers out there, all the families that are looking to feed their children. That's the most important thing for everybody to hear right now. If we continue down the path of divisiveness, that's what we're going to get. But what we're going to do is we formed a coalition, a mission that's going to decentralize our food in a way that it once was and that we had control over. We're going to start feeding our communities again. And, we have a better business model than the multinational corporations do now. That's it. I like my business plan better than theirs. That's what I like to tell people.
Yeah, that's great. So, you really struck on exactly that's the mission of the Beef Initiative, isn't it? It's to decentralize things, to devolve things back to the level of the individual and the community. Um, so maybe just get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of how you're doing that, and then if I
Sure.
may, just a little bit of a devil's advocate. It's a great idea, but is it too little, too late? Like, do we still have a fighting chance?
Yeah, and that comes with perspective, and we'll go to that. I think that one of my responsibilities that I do have is let's set perspective before we set talking points. And so the perspective, we'll say state of Texas. Texas is a big state. We have 254 counties. At one time, we had 254 microprocessing centers that served each county in the state of Texas. Okay, what does that mean? That means the microprocessing center is really the center of the universe. The processing centers themselves are the center of the universe. It's a pivot point. You have the product that comes in, a pure product that comes in a processing center, be it for animal protein or be it for produce. it gets processed, and then it gets distributed out of that processing center. Okay, right now, as you brought up earlier, four processing, multinational processing centers or corporations control 85% of our animal protein. Okay, with the beef initiative model, which I knew from the very beginning, is that we had to bring the processing centers back to our communities. That is the first pivot point that we need to make. Well, the Beef Initiative is doing that. This is something that we get to show the world is like, okay, it's probably been a little bit not achievable. Regulatory capture, legislation, inspections, big ag, lobbying that they love to, not be able to do. But with the Beef Initiative protocol, we have now done a vertical integration from soil to fork. We know exactly where your food has been, and we have control over it. And that's how the Beef Initiative was basically started. That was the perspective. And, and another thing that I hear a lot is this scalable? That's the problem. We went linear with basically our food systems. We need to go back to where we're more integrated, densely integrated into the community. Feed your communities first, and then your food distribution expands further out from that community. This is what they stole from us. They basically flipped it upside down to where instead of feeding our community first, we went and fed the world first, or that's what we were thinking as far as agriculture producers. We're like, okay, we're doing a good service here. Our seed gets shipped somewhere. We don't know where it's shipped now. Then it basically gets cut up and it gets basically thinned out. And then it makes massive amounts of profits for these multinational corporations. Within the Beef Initiative, all we've done is what my grandfather did. He ran his community through the distribution center of the microprocessing center. Feed your community first and then share the wealth beyond that community. This is how it works. That is the perspective that the general public does not understand. They think that we're trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just going back to where we were before Big Ag, and we're having massive success doing that. How I started the Beef Initiative, I went and shook one rancher's hand, and I told him exactly what we were going to do. And within doing that, we had basically traction, and the Beef Initiative has been a grassroots movement. That's the success. We're not trying to scale anything. If we're scaling anything, we're scaling replication of successes in the small communities. It started with one handshake. Now we have over 180 producers that have come into the Beef Initiative. You go to beefinitiative.com and you look at our producer section. Those are independent ranchers and producers that are feeding their communities first, and then they're allowing their distribution to go and expand greater. Each rancher and producer gets to have their own business model. They're not dictated to by Big Ag. They're not dictated to by the USDA. They're not dictated to by distribution that is controlled by the multinational processing centers. They have peer-to-peer relationships with those consumers. The consumer demand is now coming back to the independent rancher producer because they have access through a good decentralized microprocessing center. The microprocessing center is the key to all of this. And this is what the Beef Initiative is leading right now.
Perfect. So in many ways, it sounds like your vision for the future looks a lot like how things were in the past. Is that correct? So
In many, you,
are we almost
in
moving
many,
backwards to go forwards?
Yeah, I think we need to. I think we need to take a pause. Last year alone, I put on 6 summits across the United States, and the first thing I tell everybody is time to take a pause. Let's find out where we came from first. What was taken away from our mindset and from our communities? And once people see that, yeah, we're relying on the past. It's a form of elders doctrine that we've lost in the United States as well. But also, hey, we're a technology company. We're a software as a service company. I come from big tech. I've got a skill set, and I know one thing. Whenever I started in the 90s in big tech, I started with many startup companies. It was during the dot-com boom. One thing I even saw whenever I was in my 20s in the 90s is that the American rancher producer in the United States would never have a digital voice. And to this day, they still do not have a digital voice. They are not allowed, they're not invited to the party. You look at our internet that we're using today, if you could even call it the internet, it is controlled by, major, big, probably about five major multinational tech companies, the technocrats. And they don't give market access to producers to be able to have a digital voice. That's one thing that we've been able to overcome within the beef initiative is now not only are we giving a voice to the rancher producer in their community, we're also giving them a digital voice that they've never had before. And we've done it through a form of technology that I learned over 25 years in big tech. My time in Austin, Texas, and across, Palo Alto, New York, I've been around the world within big tech as well. And so I see it a tremendous opportunity to be able to have the independent ranchers and producers really become the new Yellowstone. And they're going to have a voice. They're going to have something. They're going to have an audio voice. They're going to have a visual voice, and people are going to change their consumption models and saying, okay, I'm going to go shake this rancher's hand, but now I can spread their message with their digital voice. We're going to use social media in a way that's never been used. We're going to be on all platforms. And when I tell everybody we're going to turn pop culture on its head because the rancher producer has never had a digital voice that they deserve. The number one platform that is the most censored against the producer and rancher, what would you say that is?
There are so many to choose from. Tell me.
It's Facebook. Facebook basically is the number one marketplace that independent ranchers and producers have to rely on to sell their product. It is the number one platform that censors them more than anything because they do not want to give them that digital voice that I talk about. And so if you look at Google, how much does it cost to play with Google AdWords? I guarantee if you're going to be successful on Google, you got to pay to play. And so to even get listed as an independent rancher producer, you're spending probably $25,000 a year that you do not have. It's not a highly profitable business being a cattleman or a independent producer in the United States. That's once again perspective. We've got to give the ranchers and producers digital tools, but we also have to give them community tools. And so that's what we're doing hand in hand, and that's kind of the power behind it.
And is that kind of what you mean when you say you're a modern day cattleman? Is that kind of the
Yes,
essence of it?
it really is. I come from the dirt roads of West Texas, like I say. What does that mean? Well, up where I am is outside of Canyon, Texas. That is outside of Amarillo, Texas, Hereford, Texas. That is cattle country. Used to be, you know, it wasn't commodity land. What it is now is I grew up to be a commodity cowboy. That's the multinational system. And so if we can give people a perspective that there's a war going against all production of, the cattleman. What does it mean to be a modern day cattleman? Well, we have to leverage all tools that we can. You're going to have to look at being a rancher or a cattleman differently in the United States moving forward. The war on beef is coming. This is something that we can segue into right now because the people need to have perspective of what do I mean by that. We have a global industrial food shift that is occurring. We had one that happened in the 70s. We're having one right now. Those contracts, the marching orders, that happened back in 2017. Okay, what the general public does not understand, they've got this is unfolding. You're not going to stop it. There is going to be a centralization of our food supply in a way that people do not understand. But that doesn't mean that you have to be captured or trapped by it. This is the best opportunity that I've ever had in my lifetime to create a decentralized, community based food system that is truth in food, that does give you access that you've never had here in the United States, especially over the last 10 to 15 years. Food has changed, folks, and it's about to change big time. And this is what I'm trying to get people to understand. We think there's an abundance of pure nutrition in this nation. We're not. In the United States, we are a food desert right now. I have driven 150,000 miles across the United States in 2 years. I've been on basically three, four continents, two hemispheres. I know what's unfolding, and most of the general public does not really have a clue what's about to happen.
Why do you think the cow has been caught up as this symbol of all the things that are wrong? And, if we could only just reduce the number of cows on Earth, we would start to fix the climate problem. What is it about the cow, do you think?
Well, they're telling the multinational corporations are telling on themselves how they commoditize and subsidize the cattle industry in the United States. Treated the cow just like another commodity. Well, the cow is not a commodity. It really isn't. It's a living and breathing, uh, you know, uh, being on this earth. If you look at the history of mankind, ancient civilizations for the history of time have worshiped the cow in their own certain ways. The cow is life. The cow is a land tool. The cow is the best thing that you can do for land. It's the best thing that you can do for carbon sequestration. Everything that they use as far as signaling and the narrative that they are con- creating the global marketing plan that the cow is a carbon hazard and the war on beef is real is because they're telling on themselves. They're trying to say that there's too much methane. And what they do is they highlight the way that they've engineered the industrial beef system across this globe. And whenever you have, let's say, a 500,000 cows in one area, they can use that and saying, well, that's too much methane. That's a carbon hazard. And so what they're doing, and the general public doesn't understand this, that they're telling on themselves. They're saying we've done it wrong, and now we've got to change, and we're going to use you as our puppet to basically go out there and perpetuate our marketing plan, which is the green movement, and it is the war on beef. And it's playing on a lot of idealism of people that do not realize that the cow is probably the best thing that we've ever had for land. And whenever we took the cow off the land and basically commoditized the cow along with the commoditized grain and basically pharmaceutical systems that we inject into our animals at this point in time, all they're doing is playing a big cover up. And this is what my intentions are, is to get some clarity here. Why are they telling us that the cow is a carbon hazard? That's the biggest propaganda that's going on right now in this world. If they can eliminate the cow basically out of our consumption model and take the cow off the land, well, now they own the land in a way that they've never been able to achieve. Now they own the narrative. Now they own the idealism, and now they own the nutritional delivery to all of our hearts and minds across the United States. And the thing about what really people do not understand, they're not getting rid of the cow. In the Western Hemisphere, what they're going to do is not give you market access to that cow, to that beef, to that finished product. They're going to turn beef into caviar, and they're going to insert alternative fake commodities into our consumption models that'll be controlled through the distribution systems and the marketing systems that they've created. The same people that created all the marketing for the COVID narrative over the last several years, it's the same people that are going to create a global marketing plan trying to eliminate the cow out of everybody's mindset first, and then out of your market access, and then out of your consumption model. Our beef in the United States will be sold overseas to the highest bidders. In the United States, we will not eat domestic beef anymore. We will eat foreign beef that they are basically importing into the United States. Americans don't even realize that we're not even eating American beef. And if we are, we don't even know if we are or not.
So, actually making a relationship with a rancher, getting beef that is clean, how it was raised, um, taking control of your health and what you put into your body, all of those things are suddenly becoming almost acts of rebellion in a way, aren't they?
They really are, it's kind of asinine to even have to say that it's rebellion. Oh my God! You look at what did the government tell us to do during the Great Depression? They said to get you some chickens, grow your own, food, and now they're telling you if you do that, you're going to go to jail in 10 years. The prohibition that they're doing right now against our mindsets, against our basically what is food and how you can have market access to good food. It's a travesty. And I talked to many ranchers, thousands of ranchers over the last several years. And what a lot of people do not understand is eliminating market access to true nutrition will become a national security issue. I think it already is. And the type of corruption that is in our food systems right now, the Department of Justice should be involved against four multinational corporations that do price manipulation and eliminate market access in several different ways for both the producers and the consumers. And the only way we're going to rebel against that is act like they don't exist anymore. I tell everybody, quit validating the deceptions. If you can accept that they're deceiving us, act like they don't exist. They're not even in my purview anymore. I just laugh at them and mock them because you know what? I'm going to not ask them for permission to feed my child the best food on this planet. And I know how to get that, the best food on the planet is going to shaking somebody's hand that basically lives and dies to feed you. That is the biggest power move in life right now. That's the consolidation of a collaboration that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And what it is, it's a lifestyle change. And it gets people out of the house, it gets people into their community, and it becomes a collaboration that is a movement now. It is becoming a movement. And the thing about it is, we don't have to ask for permission. And it's amazing that people think that we have to. We know the law better than the law enforcers know it themselves. We've proven that within the beef initiative, within our legislation, and with the opening up of microprocessing centers in the state of Texas and across the United States.
For you, this is very real. This is how you grew up. You said, generations of your family have lived this way. For many, many Americans, especially more recently, this is not a way of life. It's not something that many of us are familiar with. We grew up in cities and suburbs, not on ranches. So, what's the way in? How do you connect to those people? What's the sort of first thing to help people understand so they can start making those connections?
Sure. That whenever I was I embedded myself in a harvest company about 3 years ago. I wanted to get into the belly of the beast of the multinational chemical and grain system. I know how to run, a harvest. I grew up, working the land. But what I did at that time is I knew that this is daunting. And I wanted to be able to speak to everybody across, the world, really, just not in the United States. This is just not a United States issue. But here we are. I'm a Texan. I started in Texas. What I want people to understand is you have to change your perspective of what is food first. What is market access? What does that mean? What is the labeling system on boxes? And to do that, it's a broad spectrum of education. And so what we've done within the beef initiative is we started shipping beef across the United States. We have now a white label branded beef line that was my partnership with Cole Bolton of K&C Cattle in Luling, Texas. So we ship beef across the United States. If you're in New York City, I'm selling boxes of beef to people in New York City, Boston, LA, all across the United States. We're hitting every state with shipping beef. Okay, that's an entry point. At least you know you have market access to some pure animal protein that you can start. But once you've bought beef from the Beef Initiative, and we have many producers that you can buy from, just not the Beef Initiative in Texas Slim's Cuts, but we have 180 producers. But once you do basically get yourself in that entry point of knowing, hey, I can control my own distribution of my own food, then we reach out to everybody locally and say, why don't you go out there and find out if you're in New York City, find somebody in New York. Tell us about them. We'll contact them. You contact them. That way we can start getting the distribution that is in a micro community based way. So there's two ways you get into the beef initiative. There's more than one solution. It depends on where you are geographically, demographically, and what are you looking for. Not everybody's going to eat beef all the time. We know that. And so we're giving market access so people can start building their communities first through the Beef Initiative platform, but then they become part of the collaboration. We now just are going to announce that we now have a South Dakota Beef Initiative, and what they found us, and now they're building out their community based on that. They're a ranching family, and so what they're going to do is start building their community from within. We have people up in New York. We have our executive producer that you have met, June. I call him Roughshot. Well, his goal is he comes from Philadelphia, but he got out of Philadelphia. Now he's in Florida. But his dream is to get market access to good, clean food in Philadelphia. So there's so many things that are going on right now that are community based. It doesn't matter where you are. We've got a solution for you. And the first step is having the perspective, having the mindset, but being willing to collaborate. There's not a script here. That's the beauty of this. That's the creativity of this. That each individual can have their own imagination, but it first starts with either that digital handshake or that handshake in person. It's about relationship management, relationship building, and fostering those relationships. It's not a high time preference thing. This is a long-term plan. It took us 50 years, longer than 50 years to get here. It's not going to just change overnight. We're not a marketing plan. We're not Butcher Box. We're not Amazon. We're not Whole Foods, which I like to call Whole Paycheck. What we are is we're a solution that is a lifestyle change. And it's based on mind, body, and spirit, sound money, sound, food, sound health, sound communication, sound relationships. Let's get back to the basics of life. We're so connected right now in the digital world, more connected than we've ever been, but we're more disconnected than we've ever been as far as relationships. There's a huge division of interpersonal communication going on because of the digital world in which we live in right now.
That is a huge and very inspiring vision. And I love it. I do want to ask one thing that's going to be on a lot of people's minds, and I know it's something
Sure.
that you've thought about and your producers and you have talked about, and it has to do with mRNA in the food
Mm-hmm.
supply. A lot of people have heard about the mRNA vaccine technology. People are concerned about it, and uh, people want to know: is it now in my food? Is the cow that I'm eating or the pig or
Sure.
whatever animal, are they being injected with that? I know that's something that you've actually taken head on. So can you help people understand that?
Yeah, once again, thank you for bringing the perspective. And because that it really does work against the general public's understanding because, they see everything on social media. That's the divisiveness, that is the division, that is the confusion, and that's the social engineering that's going on right now. First off, there's no mRNA injections being used in cattle in the United States. Everybody in the beef initiative assures you that there will never, ever be any mRNA injected into their cattle. And that's where we get to make a stand. And we don't have to have a argument about this within the powers that be. We don't have to inject our beeves with any type of antibiotics or steroids that we do not see fit. There are a few antibiotics out there that have been used for 50 to 60 years that are very good for our cattle industry. And then there's, of course, ones and proposals of moving forward. We work with Robert Malone. We work with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. We work with Dr. Brooke Miller. We know what's going on within the cattle industry in the United States. We are the form of beef intelligence that this nation is now waking up to, that they know that they need. First off, there's no use into worrying about mRNA in cattle in the United States because we have a bigger issue. Whenever you go to the supermarket, no matter where it is, tell me what country of origin that beef is from. Nobody can tell you. Why can they not tell you? Well, it's not on the label. The USDA will never tell you where the beef is from. Why? Well, they've been lobbied by the multinational corporations to keep that a secret. and they use all kind of nefarious ways and messaging and legislation to keep the country of origin off of our packaging of beef in the United States. There's the Prime Act that's coming up right now, and they're trying to propose that we do have country of origin labeling. Well, I'll guarantee you, from first day to the end of wherever this 200 years down from here, you will always know the rancher of origin of your beef. You will always know that it does not have any type of injections in that beef that you do not want in it. Most of the producers that I've talked to in person as of late, they will and are and have always taken a stand against injecting their cattle with anything that they do not see fit. We follow a regenerative practice. That means very few inputs that are foreign inputs into our cattle. That means from feed all the way into injections, steroids, whatever it is. Every producer that I work with, and I know if there's anything that they ever have to inject in that cattle, maybe it is an antibiotic into a small calf. That calf already goes into the commercial market. It never goes into the regenerative protocol, in which is the beef initiative. But let's go back to the country of origin labeling. Right now, we're not eating American beef anymore. And if we are, like I said, you don't even know if you are or not. Nobody's going to tell you. They can't tell you. The supermarket can't tell you. The processing center can't tell you. They did a test on hamburger meat in a processing center south of San Antonio. It had around 88 forms of genetics in 1 pound of ground beef. That's 88 different cows. Okay, let's say those cows are from Africa, they're from Brazil, South America, New Zealand, Australia. What? Just pick your country. Are you going to be able to basically identify if those countries are using mRNA? They're going to use mRNA. And so until we know where the beef is coming from, it's guesswork. It's a crapshoot. You're not going to know what's in that beef. That's the power of the beef initiative. You know exactly what's in your beef. You have a direct tie to the producer. There's accountability there that we don't have to worry about from a label, from a multinational corporation, or from our government that has been lying to us for over 50 years now. And so let's get perspective. Until you can really know where that cow is, you're not going to know what's in that beef. If you're going to rely on the USDA or the FDA or multinational corporations to say, hey, don't worry about it, you're not going to consume any mRNA cattle, it's Russian roulette at this point in time. So if you're going to be concerned about mRNA vaccines, right now there's one big umbrella of an answer, and that's the beef initiative. Because every one of our producers has to take a pledge that they will never inject mRNA cattle into their beefs. And we're having massive success if is leading basically the understanding, the education. What is most important right now? Country of origin. That's not going to happen. Beef Initiative will give you the rancher of origin, and you can rest assured that you will never have to worry about mRNA in your beef.
What criteria do you use to vet the producers who become part of the initiative?
And that's a good question, because a lot of people make it way too complicated. Okay, if you're a cattleman, you're a good cattleman. You're a cow calf operator. Okay, that's what we call them. I'll get a little West Texas here. Dang it, you know what that cow does every day of its life. You know what land it's basically rebuilding. You know the soil it's rebuilding. You know the water it's drinking. And so it's really so simple. It's complicated. It's not a complex system. If you know me, you know exactly. If I'm selling you beef right here in West Texas, well, that beef was probably started off with some really good grasslands right here, in which basically used to steward millions of bison for thousands of years, some of the best grasslands in the world. Okay, well, you're going to find out that cow's been getting some of the best proteins from some of the best grasses. And then you're going to say, okay, well, where was that cow processed? Well, I'm going to say, well, it was Panhandle Meats. And what that is it's our local microprocessing center. And then after that, that's your cow. There's not much more to say. It's like
Simple.
we didn't inject the cow. We didn't have to do anything to the cow. It rebuilt our soil. It drank water from the Ogallala aquifer, and then it was processed in a government approved state certified processing center, and now it's your beef. You don't have to go through a supermarket. You don't have to go through a marketing plan. You don't have to go through anything. And what you find out is that beef is a hell of a lot less expensive. It's better for you, and you don't even realize what beef really tastes like. It's amazing how many people come to me and says, I had no idea this is what beef actually tastes like. That's how far away we've been separated from knowing what food is. And by making it that simple, that's where it becomes complicated, because you have all these arguments. Oh, you need this type of verification. You need this type of track and trace. You need this. How many more government agencies do we need to basically say, okay, this is safe? It's a joke. At this point, it's a joke. Sanitation of meat, everything that they use against us, the EPA, the sanitation of, okay, whenever you look at sanitation of a processing center, sanitation of a processing center that's harvesting 5,000 beeves in one day is going to be a little bit different than a microprocessing center that's harvesting 3 cows a day. I mean, you can't compare, and that's what the general public doesn't understand. That's the confusion that they throw in as far as validation, or as far as safety, as far as sanitation. And this is our job as the beef industry to bring that clarity.
What you're describing basically is a parallel system. It's
Sure.
creating a new paradigm that's just based on trust and truth and simplicity. And I think that that works across so many levels of our society right now. Things have become overcomplicated and too big, and people have lost trust in those systems. And I just wanted to ask you, do you see a role for systems and structures anymore? Or do you think the model that you're building with the Beef Initiative of kind of giving people control back in their own hands and within their communities without any top down control, would you say that that is where the future lies? And if so, I mean, would you consider yourself maybe an anarchist?
Right. That's a strong word, right? And I tell you what, I'm one pissed off cowboy, that's for sure. I'm tired of children dying in the United States. I'm tired of people not living the life that they were basically promised, whenever they came into this country. We're not the healthiest nation. We're sick. And so I really don't care what people call me, and I'll take any title they want to give me because it's based on truth, and that's all in transparency. And so you damn right, I'm a rebel. You can call me an outlaw, whatever. I don't care. I'll take it. But one thing that we're going to do is we're not going to ask for permission to feed our children the way that we want to feed our children, and we don't have to ask for permission. I'm not competing against the multinational system. I can't. They can squash us like a bug. And so I like to fly under the radar. If I go up there and try to go toe to toe with JBS or Cargill or Tyson, they'll just shut us off like a light switch. What they're going to do, though, because what we're going to end up doing in the long run, flying under the radar, is that we're going to change consumer demand in the United States. We're going to do it with one handshake, one family, one cow, one rancher, one child at a time. And by having that approach, it's a very low time preference approach. And so what you'll see is you'll see a new system that people first, they change their mindset. Why have we lost small town of America? What is the movement behind getting everybody into the cities? Folks, this is a prohibition going on against personal space and having free market access to your life in a way that we've known. It's coming. There's a monetary reset going on right now across this globe. I mean, that's a different podcast all within itself. And so, how do we approach this? Well, through your consumer demand. You know, I think there are tons of parallel systems that basically sprout from starting with truth in food. What is truth in food? Let's get back to what that is. People can have their own gardens. They can basically go out there and raise their own chickens. They can have a relationship with the rancher, and you can do barter systems. There's so much that people do not even realize that are right in front of them. I'm living the best life possible right now because I follow a protocol of making sure that I consume and my demand has nothing to do with multinational corporations. I don't need anything from them. I've proven it. I am proof of work. And it's not the same for everybody. It's not a one size fits all. But what there is there's traction in there for you to go out there and engineer a new consumption model that basically saves your life in a way that you don't see coming. We have thousands of families that write to the Beef Initiative every day, and they're saying, thank you. Thank you for giving us this perspective. And they've gone off and started engineering their own community in a way that works for them. There's going to be thousands of little parallel systems that sprout up from small communities all the way from the state of Washington to the dirt roads of West Texas to basically, the jungles of Puerto Rico. It doesn't matter where, but we need to invert our perspective. We need to invert our supply and demand. And if you're still wanting to buy 20 pairs of shoes on Amazon and buy beef from Amazon, that's probably not going to work for you. But if you want to go ahead and buy your beautiful products off of Amazon, but you make a promise that you will only consume food that supports a local food producer and rancher, your life is going to change for the better. So it's taking the individual and giving them obligation and accountability to what is your consumption model. What is your consumer demand? Anytime that somebody still, that to this day, right now, as we speak, if you go down to Costco, Walmart, Kroger's, whatever the major chain of supermarkets are in the United States, you just put a rancher producer out of business in the United States of America. And that is the plan. That is the consolidation. And that is the centralization that is going on. And I will pick on the multinational corporations. And when I say pick on them, I'm just going to tell them the truth. How did the hog industry get consolidated and centralized in the United States? It was because of Tyson. They liquidated all the local producers. Overnight, they basically owned the hog industry. They consolidated it and centralized it. There's mRNA going into hog in the United States. If you're eating bacon from supermarkets, guess what? You might be eating mRNA tainted hog. Who's going after the cattle industry in the United States right now? Tyson. Who owns Tyson? Smithville. Who owns Smithville? China. It's multinational corporations. It's basically big government coming after food systems. There's new ranches being built across this world right now. There are governments that are now vying for the best nutrition so they can feed their people first. The United States, if they do not wake up, will be lost in this basically new rush to create a whole new Silk Road when it comes to food. This is going to play out. And so let's create a parallel system that is decentralized and it's based on community building instead of high profit margins for multinational corporations that have basically stolen the health of a nation.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a perfect place to end today. There's, as you said, so much more that we can explore. And I do hope you'd come back and have that conversation with us again. But before we close, is there any last word that you want to leave people with? I know that what you paint is actually quite a hopeful vision, and it just starts with simple steps. But what's the last message you would leave people with?
Well, one thing it is right now, I come from big tech. I was in the telecommunications intelligence labs. I know how they engineer dopamine. I know from the very beginning of the very first like button. I know the history of the internet. And I ask folks to take a pause right now. Take a pause. Your activity on the internet right now, you're basically you're nothing more than the product anymore. And the way that your emotions are controlled now through the digital world, well, there's intentions behind the engineering of the internet as we speak. Let's take a pause as a nation. Let's take a pause as parents. Let's see what's important. Let's get back to the basics. There's a lot of opportunity right now. Like I said, this is the best time of my life right now because I'm serving. You do not receive until you first give. Let's give some clarity. Let's give some support to all the independent ranchers and producers across this world. You look at the Netherlands, 3,000 farms are going to be gone forever. That's been in the plan for a while. People think that there's going to be a solution to that. There's not. There's an asset reallocation coming, folks. They did it in the 80s within farming. You had Farm Aid, and now they're going to come after every part of the global agricultural apparatus, and they're going to shift it, and it's going to be turned on top of its head because they do not want to lose control. You have the power to take that control away from them to where it doesn't affect you, the individual parent or the family or child. What you need to do is start with the basics. Go to the Beef Initiative, beefinitiative.com. Sign up for our Substack. You've seen it, Zara. You've seen all the work that we've done as of late. You've been following me for about a year now. We are basically getting a lot of traction. We're providing all kinds of solutions, all kinds of lifestyle management. We have a voice of the great American rancher. We're giving the rancher a voice. We're giving market access to pure animal protein, and we're going to just continue that, basically that mission, this movement that has come from one handshake. Go out there and create a relationship with the Beef Initiative, and do it by, the funnel process that we've created is just read the Substacks, share it. Let's become the marketing arm of the great American rancher producer, and let's take control in our own hands. Let's rebuild our communities. And as far as this podcast, thank you. We have so much more to talk about, and I think that you and I are going to be doing some more collaboration together. And we invite everybody to join along with us, and let's get this narrative spread out. Let's decentralize our communications and our food consumptions, and let's do it with a sense of empowerment, not a sense of a dread. My grandfather taught me. He said, because he lived through the Great Depression, he said, during times of mass prohibition, there should be times of mass innovation. This is time for mass innovation, and we're not going to ask for permission. So that's my message today, and there's going to be a heck of a lot more of that coming. So thank you, Zara.
Thank you, Texas Slim. That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We're really, really honored to have you. And we're with you in the mission. We wish you every success and can't wait to collaborate a little bit more.
Can't wait to talk to you again, and I really do appreciate you reaching out. Everybody know what Zara has done is she's living an intentional life, and she's living in the solutions. And you shared your story with me. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. Let's go and let's let everybody else share their stories. Let's get some testimonies going on as far as solutions, and not what the issue. We know what the issues are. They're unfolding right in front of us. It's time to take action. So thank you, Zara.
Thank you. Absolutely. It's about being aware, being mindful, and being intentional, as you said. So thank
100%. Thank you. Take care.
you too. So, as Texas Slim said, to find out more about the Beef Initiative, definitely check out their website and their Substack, and they're also on Twitter. And if you enjoy what you saw and heard today on this podcast, be sure to follow us on Twitter as well. And please like, subscribe, and comment on this video. That's going to really help us get some more views. We are also on Substack. We have new stories coming out every week, collapselife.substack.com. So please follow us there. We have dubbed Collapse Life the thinking person's guide to society and demise. It's all about opening our eyes, taking control, and taking action in our own lives. So we look forward to bringing you even more engaging, provocative, entertaining voices like Texas Slim was today. We can't wait to see you here on another podcast. And don't forget, it's only Collapse, so chin up. See you soon.